Congregation Lador Vador here on Long Island in New York, for those of us who are joining us from out of state. I am joined this morning by my rabbi, Rabbi Jeff Stiffman, from Congregation Shaare Emeth in St. Louis, Missouri. My family has belonged to Congregation Shaare Emeth for, I guess, almost 50 years.
Yes.
When we moved to St. Louis when I was 7 years old. So we have belonged to the synagogue for many, many years. And Jeff, you've been the rabbi there for over 50 years too. I think 53, if I recall.
53 years, yeah.
That's amazing. And Jeff took my family and me to Israel for the first time, helped to light that spark in 1979. I recall us traveling through the Sinai Desert right before it returned to Egypt. It was really a wonderful trip and really helped to light the fire for me in terms of my love of Judaism and my commitment to Jewish life. And also, I should add, Jeff's mom was my Susie's Hebrew school teacher when she was growing up in Baltimore. So that's a sort of this wonderful, strange coincidence, I guess, that both the Stiffmans, well, both your mom and you, served as our teachers. And I understand from what you say that Susie was your mom's favorite student in all her years of teaching. And I, of course, was your favorite student in all your years of teaching.
You and your brother.
I just thought I had to say that.
That's right.
To see what you would say. So Jeff, it's great to have you on the show, as I like to call it.
It's wonderful to be with you. I'll tell this story real quickly, but
go ahead.
Susie Hennison was my mother's student, and then she became a student teacher. And my mother just loved her. And Howard, her father, was my cousin Arthur, who was also a rabbi. Was his roommate at the University of Maryland. So we had all these connections. And when your parents announced that when I told her that you were off to Jerusalem for your first year at the Hebrew Union College, she said, you better have him look up Susie because she is so special and so wonderful. She used to visit me when she came home from college, my mother said. And that same day, your mother called me and said, do you know the Hennisons from Baltimore?
That's all Steve's talking about now, right?
That's right. Exactly. Exactly.
That's very good. Well, I'm glad I found Susie. Even without your direction, I did that.
That's right.
Look at that.
That's right.
So that is wonderful. But this show, as much as we both love Susie, and I love her especially, this show's not about Susie. Right. Or your mom, but I wanted to talk to you about being at a synagogue, the same synagogue for so many years. It's certainly something that is in for me. You know, it's been 21 years that I've been at the same synagogue and serving the same congregation. So, you know, what's the best part about staying at Congregation Shaare Emeth for so many years? Aside from the Moskowitzes.
I was going to say that having the Moskowitz family there. I think the best part is that you develop a large family in your congregation. And if you're traveling from city to city, you're making new friendships, you're making new connections. But when you're in a congregation for such a long time, you have this wonderful feeling of going to synagogue, seeing people who have been friends for years, making new friends, making connections in the community, and being able to be involved in in the early days, it was civil rights, it was, fair housing, it was things like that. And making these connections that last and last and last. The only problem is the Moskowitzes and the Stiffmans don't look the same way we looked 50 years ago.
Jeff, do you think it's hard sometimes to navigate that, friendship rabbi kind of line, if you will?
Yes, it's quite difficult because except for a few close friends, and we're lucky to have some of them too. including the Moskowitzes, I might say.
Shout out to Carl and Marcia.
That's
So
right. um, I expect a big Hanukkah gift, Carl and Marcia. Uh, uh, you have a wonderful relationship with a lot of people, but it sort of came home to me, to Arlene and me, a number of years ago when I officiated at the wedding of a child of friends. Um, and often we are seated in the old days with grandparents. We got to find a place for the rabbi to sit, and we'd see tables full of friends sitting out there, but we were up there because we were considered the rabbi. Um, and there was sometimes that separation. And good friends would sometimes, when we come to some place, they say, "Oh, we better behave ourselves. The rabbi's here now."
right, right.
Um,
So this,
so there is a little difference too, which sometimes, because I consider myself fairly informal, sometimes it's sort of jarring in a way.
yeah, there's that piece. There's also, of course, the piece that when people call you for, when for loss, or when you lose a friend, that it's, that sort of, I hate to put it this, like that work friend line is very blurred,
Yes.
and that makes it, emotionally laden and quite difficult.
And when you're in a place for a long time, as you are, as well, much longer than most of our colleagues, um, when a death occurs, chances are you knew the person, or you knew the children, but a lot of times now I knew the person and the children.
Right.
And that makes it harder in one sense, because as a rabbi, I'm there as a comforter. And when I meet with the family before a funeral, and ask about, the life of the person and what their feelings are, whether they would like to say anything or things like that. A lot of times now, I've known the person for many, many years, and it's painful for me as well.
Yeah, it's very painful, but it's also sometimes I think that it clouds my listening, being a good listener to the family stories, because I have my own, stories that
Sure.
are filling my head. And I think the
Yes,
most important thing is to listen and to hear how they tell the story. Do you
absolutely.
do you I mean, do you ever find that sort of, that you can't, is it possible that if you're such a good friend, you can't be a good rabbi? Do you think that's
Hopefully, you'll still be a good rabbi. Hopefully, you'll be able to put your rabbi mind to work. Um, I find it hard sometimes because I know that the eulogy and the funeral service is in memory of the deceased, and it's for the family. And there's sometimes anecdotes that I would like to tell that are important personally to me, but that I know aren't necessarily the type of anecdotes that the family might want. So we might talk about that pre-funeral. We might talk about that during the shiva, but that's hard. My problem is cutting down. One of my predecessors, Rabbi Julius Gordon, who was supposedly one of the greatest preachers in the American Rabbinate in his time, said it's very easy to write an hour-long sermon. It's very difficult to write a 20-minute one. And I think sometimes we find that with funerals as well.
Yeah, well, keeping it to, I guess you want to share all of your stories and all of your
Right,
memories. Yeah,
right.
the piece is, if you're mourning as well, and it's, you feel the loss as well, sometimes offering comfort to the family can be challenging, because you've got your own emotions wrapped up in your own stories, as you said.
Yes.
But look, I still, I I very much still recall, the words you spoke at my grandfather's funeral, Alav Shalom. And it's, I recall it as a reminder that those words do matter, that we offer
Yes.
at the funeral. One of the things I've been thinking about vis-a-vis COVID is, that all of these things have been curtailed.
Mhm.
We're almost never doing a funeral service in chapel. It's only
Right,
graveside for safety reasons,
right.
and everyone's standing, so the service needs to be adjusted in a sense, because of the circumstances, and so I think we're being, although obviously safety and health come first, but we're being robbed in some ways of Judaism's wisdom, and how it guides us through this time.
Exactly. We can't hug each other. Uh, if we have Shiva, it's virtual.
I know.
Not the same as friends coming to the house and offering comfort or bringing food or what can I do to help. I know that I found that difficult. At my age, I haven't officiated at any ceremonies since COVID broke. Luckily, my successors have been wonderful about that and allowed me to write a eulogy, and they give it. Rabbi Jim Bennett, my immediate successor, is wonderful about that because he's younger than I am. But it's difficult for me as well to watch the Zoom or however the funeral director broadcasts the service. And I
You know,
feel like I'd like to be there, but you can't be.
a friend just commented to me that one of the things about the Zoom Shiva is that it does focus, on the most important part, because often people share remembrances,
Mhm,
uh,
mhm.
and everyone's focused on the prayer service. So there's not a lot of these sort of like side conversations and something going off in that room, in this room. I mean, everyone is focused and very attentive for however long it is. Uh, so
Absolutely.
so there is that piece, and it is a very powerful image to scroll through those pages, on
Yes,
Zoom and see how many people are gathered.
yes.
So
And to be able to gather people from all around the world, literally,
yes.
who wouldn't be able to be at the Shiva, but who are there live.
So if I understand you, Chris, so the relationships and the depth of the relationships that have developed over the years is the power, of staying at a place for so long, and that's part of the meaning of it. Do you have some sort of like highlights, of all of these years? Some things that you say, oh, that was. I mean, I know there was the years that Karl Moskowitz was president,
That's
of
right.
Shaare Emeth. It was highlighted,
Tra-
but
Traveling to Baltimore to officiate at your wedding
oh, thank you. That's what I
on the
was saying.
same bema where Arlene and I were married. So
That's right.
that's
That's
right.
right.
Uh, I think that the the whole uh, the whole time was very exciting, was fun. I think one of the beautiful things about the Rabbinate is no day is the same as the previous one. Um, we went through some very difficult times at the very beginning of my rabbinate, where the congregation had to decide whether to move from the old building in a neighborhood that was integrating, and in which the school system had suffered a number of problems, to a new building or whether to stay. And there were very, very bitter times. Luckily, I came in just as the decision was being made. So my predecessor got most of the flack. Um, but moving into a new building and sort of beginning anew, where the congregation had been drastically going down and turned around, uh, was important. We started a young adult congregation because I came as the assistant rabbi first, and my senior rabbi was not the type of rabbi who was attracting young people. So we started this young adult congregation, which attracted a couple hundred families to the congregation, which totally amazed me. But with a group of lay people, we did that. Another was working with the youth group. And that was one of the difficulties of becoming senior rabbi, because then you seed such things as staff responsibilities to others. And we had wonderful lay youth group advisors, including your parents, and assistant rabbis who did that. But the youth group had brought me into the rabbinate, and I had thought that I would always be able to do that, but soon came to realize that by the time I hit 30, the kids really thought I was an old man already, and we needed a younger rabbi to take care of that.
Yeah, but it was a great, it should just, because I'm not sure people understand fully that the move out to the county, was a significant move in terms of, and a difficult move internally for the synagogue
Yes.
At the time, but it's obviously ensured the synagogue's growth and vibrancy.
And survival.
Yeah, and moving out to the county. Can you go back for a second? Because I don't know if I know this. So you said that that youth group brought you to the rabbinate or something along those lines. So do you want to say more about that?
Sure. My mother taught at Baltimore Hebrew Congregation for 45 years. We were tied in, especially to the cantor, who was the educator. When I was confirmed, like a typical teenager, I said to my parents, okay, I've done it. I've been a good boy. I'm not interested anymore. Don't push me to more temple stuff or things like that. My cousin Arthur, who had also ended up becoming a rabbi, but was 2 years ahead of me, called me one day and said, youth group has a Labor Day retreat at Camp Louise, which was a community camp in Baltimore. And we always do a show and we need a piano player. Would you consider doing it? And I said, what are you going to do? He said, it's a takeoff on the Mikado. I said, yeah, I'd love it. And that's how I got involved in youth group. And youth group was so wonderful. In those days, it went through college. And I met Arlene a year later, my wife of 60 years. Youth group became so important to us that when I was a biology major in college in the middle of my junior year, I decided I'd rather go into the rabbinate than I was always planning to go into medicine, So shocked my parents, shocked my future in-laws, and I blamed my rabbi, Morris Lieberman, who was very active in the community and especially in civil rights, and the youth group for my moving to the rabbinate. So that was really an important part of my life.
And because you played piano.
That's right. When I used to fight taking piano lessons, my mother would say, one day you'll thank me. So I guess, thanks, Mom.
There you go. That's you. I didn't know that, I think you recall that I was pre-med in college as well.
Right, sure.
Sort of take a similar path to the rabbinate.
Right.
So that's an interesting thing that we share. Another piece, and I just want to maybe wrap it up with this. One of the things that's quite remarkable in thinking about Congregation Shaare Emeth is that there are many people who are rabbis today who grew up at the synagogue.
Yes.
Not just the two Moskowitzes, but there's quite a number, which is, I don't know if it's a record that there's so many from one synagogue, but I think that you could take that as a feather in your cap that so many of us who grew up there went on to become rabbis.
I very proud. I sent 12 people to the Hebrew Union College. I actually sent more and some didn't stay, but
those of us who finished the program.
That's right. Rabbis and cantors. Of course, when someone would come, like we had lunch at Shanker's Deli and we were talking about it, and Arlene said, you've doomed another young life. You're going to go to hell for this. But no, that was very, very, very fulfilling part of my rabbinate, that some of the teachings continued and it will continue into the next generations.
Yeah, I have to say it's not, I don't know if it was Hebrew school per se, but that trip to Israel was quite inspiring. And I said to my brother, I said, it wasn't that I wasn't looking at the camera. It was that I was looking around and exploring Israel. And Jeff was showing us.
And I remember you and my children and the other younger members of this family trip spent a lot of time in the back of the bus playing cards.
Yes, yes.
And the guide would say, put down the cards and look, here, or we're there, or something like that. So even through the card games, it came, no computer games in those days. So yeah, it came through.
Well, thank you. I appreciate all of everything that you've done for our family and your friendship for so many years. So thank you again for joining us on Monday Musings. It's been great to see you, although virtually. I look forward to seeing you in person
Hopefully soon.
one day soon. Thanks
Yes.
again.
Thank you. It's an honor.